Hello and welcome to Screams and Streams, the podcast that looks at the best and worst horror movies as rated on Rotten Tomatoes from 1970 onwards. I'm your host, Chad Campbell, and with me is my co-host,
Mike Karen.
Before we get to today's film, we'd like to invite you to check us out on Instagram. Our handle is at ScreamStreamPod. Also, be sure to check out our website at www.screamsandstreams.com. That's ScreamsAndstreams.com, where we have information about our episodes and our watchability scale, where we rank all of the films we are looking at. Please be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe to our show on any of the platforms where you get your podcasts. Just a warning, in the podcast, we do jump around in the plot when we are discussing the details, and we may end up spoiling the film if you haven't had the chance to see it yet. If you are someone who doesn't like spoilers, we recommend that you stop listening now. Check out the film and then rejoin us for our discussion. This year is 1972, and we will be reviewing Tales from the Crypt.
The movie is based on the EC comic series from the 1950s. I'm sure that anybody that's been a fan of horror movies has seen the font, is familiar with it. You've probably seen Creepshow, Vault of Horror, and all those other ones that were based off of this one. But this is the original anthology. Well, maybe not the original anthology series of horror, but one of the first ones to really make it popular and to really hit it well. This story of this movie is 5 strangers get lost in a crypt and, after meeting the mysterious crypt keeper, receive visions of how they will die. The movie is made up of that wraparound story and 5 individual stories that take place throughout, and we're just going to go at them one at a time and talk about them. So we'll give you the lowdown and the breakdown of each of those sections as we get to them.
5 stories. They're quite short too, actually. Like, the movie itself is only an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So it's not a real long watch, but I actually, if we're going to jump right into the categories and go to first impressions, I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Absolutely, me too. Like you said, it's 5 stories, hour and a half long, but I think that tightness really just makes it more enjoyable. There was no extra bit, no filler.
Right. No, I agree. So the first one that we are doing is All Through the House. This happens around Christmas time, and Christmas music is playing throughout the whole scene. What happens is a guy is putting out presents for his wife and his daughter, laying everything out, and he writes a little note that says, "To the best wife ever," and he sets it down, and then he sits in his chair, and she kills him. Spoiler alert.
We don't even get time to know the character. It's just, they just jump right into it. And Joan Collins is the star of this section. People might remember her from Dynasty back in the day. Sorry, you mentioned the music, and I completely forgotten just how annoying it was.
Oh, so annoying. I'm not a real big Christmas song fan anyways, and it just never stopped. It was Christmas music throughout the entirety of that scene. And the other thing is, the guy just seems so happy. He was the happiest dude in the world. He's just setting out presents, and he's got a little drink, and he's just amazingly happy. And then all of a sudden, just gets smoked by his wife.
Not a clue in the world something's going wrong in his marriage.
Not a sniff. And like he even said, best wife ever. And then she just takes him out. Then the whole thing is her trying to deal with this murder that's happened.
Clean up the blood, which she does an amazing job of. And
on a white carpet, I might add.
Almost like a white faux fur carpet as well.
That's right, yeah.
And dispose of the body, all while trying to keep her daughter asleep upstairs
during Christmas.
It's like this was the first Christmas that daughter was aware that Santa's a thing too. It just would not stop.
No, just kept waking up and what's going on, and when's he coming? When's he coming? Yeah, and the wife is up there. Oh, you have to get to sleep. You have to get to sleep. She kills the husband, and then the radio is playing. It's got the Christmas music going, and then all of a sudden we hear this emergency alert that there is an insane person that has escaped from the mental asylum in a Santa Claus suit. This actually plays a lot better than it sounds. As we're talking it back, it seems ridiculous, but it's actually a pretty good watch.
I don't know if we're getting into the categories yet or not, but we do the tropes Hall of Shame, and I put escapee from mental institution announced on the radio.
Oh, big time, yeah.
But then in my mind, I'm like, well, it's 1972. Maybe this is only the 6th or 7th time it's been done, not the 150th.
Not the 100th. Yeah. Every camp story is centered around some guy escaping from a mental asylum. Halloween, 1978 is.
So this is maybe ahead of its time or in its time, but
Yeah.
By now it's like, okay, gets a bit much.
And we can jump into the categories if we want to already, because we do have 5 of these to break down. So it's going to probably take us a little while to do every category for all 5 of these. For Tropes Hall of Shame, I agree. The Mental Institute, the guy coming, and then there was... I really didn't like the decorations in the film. I don't know why it took me so long to kick that out, but I saw they panned in, the tree looked horrible. The decorations were very tacky and tinsely. And this, from what I gather, was supposed to be a very rich, well-off family. They had a nice house from the outside. And then when you looked in, it just looked really gaudy. Tacky and very gaudy. Yeah.
That set designer got one note. It's Christmas and just ran with it.
Yeah. And just, we're going to do all the things.
Don't want one camera shot that doesn't tell you it's Christmas.
That's right. So that was my trope hall of shame, was just, the gaudiness of the whole set there. Yeah. And I agreed with your take on it as well.
One-liners. Were there any, I don't know if there were any lines in this one that really jumped out to me.
There wasn't really a lot said in this one, other than the daughter saying, Mommy, Santa's here, and I let him inside, would probably be the best one, because nothing else is really said. She's worried about cleaning up the murder. The insane guy doesn't say anything. He just kind of, ooh, which was a really good jump scare. For me, I jumped.
Like behind the curtains?
When he came through, he had his hands when she was at the gate at the house, and he just kind of, came at her. I was... Whoa, it actually made me jump. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, that would be the only line that I could think of, because really not a lot was said.
What doesn't hold up? For me, it was the blood.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, very...
It's 100% just Pantone red paint.
Looks so fake.
Yeah. And it's so funny because we've seen blood in other movies in previous years that looked a bit more realistic. Other effects in this movie are pretty good. I don't get why they could not get blood on film. I guess that's something for homework for next time.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe if it looked too real, they had to go for a different rating, but it just looked really, really fake. Yeah. As we said before, the cleanup job she did was unbelievable. First of all, so he gets hit in the head, and you bleed a lot from your head.
Yes.
And he didn't really bleed all that much onto the carpet. And then she takes him and hucks him down the stairs. And she must be impeccably strong, because she's just this dead guy. She's just hauling, and the daughter's upstairs. Just a whole bunch going on there. And then she just hucks him down the stairs. He rolls down, and then she goes and she takes like this what would that knife be called? Was that like a icing knife or something?
Yeah, I was going to say a putty knife, but it's not a putty knife, but it's, for icing a cake.
Yeah.
Like a pate knife almost.
So she takes that and she starts scooping this blood into this glass, and then she takes this glass downstairs where she's thrown this body and just kind of sprinkles this blood around.
Right, so it looks like he fell down the stairs. I'd forgotten about that. I was so busy fixating on the cleanup, I'd forgotten about the setting.
Yeah, her actual kind of stage. And then she runs upstairs and washes the glass out with just plain water, no soap even. Nope. Just
even cleaning the carpet, looks like she's just scrubbing it with water. And everything just lifts right out.
Amazing cleaner. Well, very well done. Yeah, I agree. The blood doesn't hold up for me.
Going on to the most gratuitous scene or over the top scene, the only thing I had with this one was when she throws him down the stairs. That surprised me, just with the violence of it, to the poor stunt person that had to pull that off.
Because he does a full forward roll down the stairs. Yeah. Like there's not, it's not a sideways roll or anything like that. It is a full forward roll down the stairs. In fact, it hits the one part of the stair and busts out.
Breaks the railing off. And it doesn't look like it was a slowed down roll, controlled and then sped up. It was...
No. Yeah, it looks, and that was 1972, so maybe they said, hey, you got to roll down these stairs.
I always wonder about that with the safety of the movies back then. You watch these stunts, you're just like,
yeah, how many bones were broken on that one?
Would they be able to do it these days?
Yeah, exactly. Mine for gratuitous scenes was the strangling scene at the end. I just thought was pretty over the top when he grabs her, and I just thought it was pretty overacted. Yeah. It seemed a little much.
Well, her reaction I thought was overreactive. He wasn't really strangling; he was more massaging her shoulders.
Yeah.
So I'd written down is Santa trying to kill her by massage? Because he doesn't. He doesn't grab her throat. He like grabs her clavicles and is just like squeezing there.
Just on her traps. And she's writhing around and screaming and
she
stuff.
Sells it. Yeah. She sells it.
And what happens to the daughter at this time? Like, we don't even see her. She's not even screaming mommy or anything like that. Do you think he's killed her off to the side, or what has happened to her?
The implied death of the daughter. I don't think they would show that.
No, they wouldn't. I don't think they would, but we never saw.
Yeah, there's no crying, screaming, or running away.
She just comes in and says, hey, I let him in. And then he comes in and she runs to the fire, I'm assuming to get the poker because she's going to try to ward him off. But then he massages her to death.
Yeah, I never thought about it. Maybe she just goes silent in fear, but
possibly.
Because she let him in, he keeps her alive. I don't know.
But we just don't see that.
Yeah.
So
anything that stood the test of time.
Well, the stunts, definitely. Just what you said there, though. I really liked the death scene where it just kind of comes out of the blue.
Yeah.
And he's reading the newspaper, and then all of a sudden you hear this thump, and then this blood hits the newspaper, and then he falls forward, and she's standing there. I thought that was a pretty cool scene.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you that.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Well said. You've convinced me. The only other thing I could think of is I thought Santa's makeup was pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? When you have the sort of almost comical blood in this scene, but then the makeup on Santa, he does look deranged and terrifying. And
he does, yeah. Santa definitely stood the test of time. He looks scary even now by today's standards. If through a 2023 lens, he actually still looks scary.
Yeah, he'd be right up there in one of those new, like not Violent Night, but there was, I think, Silent Night last year that came out.
Right. Yeah.
That really bad Christmas horror movie.
Wasn't that with the guy from Stranger Things?
Violent Night was the one with Hopper. I can't remember.
Hopper. Yeah. I can't
remember the actor's name.
Sorry. And back it up moments. My back it up moment was the death scene.
Yeah.
That one, and also the tumble down the stairs.
Yeah, both of those.
Those two scenes were killer in this scene.
And especially, like you said, the way that death comes out of nowhere, just it's so well done.
Yeah. And again, he's so happy. Like he's just sitting
you really
there.
Felt for him,
I did, man. The guy's just, Christmas. He's just having a drink. He's reading the paper, and then all of a sudden, thump. Yeah, it just totally surprised me.
Let's get on to the second story then. This is Reflection of Death. In this one, a man is leaving his wife for his mistress. And so he packs up, leaves the house, leaves his family behind, goes to the mistress. She packs up and they get into his car. And while driving, it's like he gets startled or almost like awakened by something, but it doesn't seem like he's sleeping.
Yeah.
And then this causes loss of control with the vehicle and they crash. The rest of the sequence is done point of view style where we're just watching this person. He ends up going home. And when he gets there, the woman he was leaving is with a different man and they open the door and they start screaming. And everyone that sees this person just keeps screaming and screaming. And he goes back to his mistress's house. I thought this was really good. She opens the door and says, I can't remember what, like he's been dead for 2 years. When he's like, it's me.
Yeah.
Like, he's been dead for 2 years.
But she's blind too from the accident, right? So she only hears his voice. I thought the actress did a really good job with her reactions because she's just like, what is going on? Yeah. He's been dead for 2 years. And then he looks over and we see him through the mirror.
Yeah, a corpse that's been dead.
And he's
for 2
basically
years.
A zombie, right? So, but then he wakes up.
That's what startled him awake in the car that caused the accident.
Yeah. And then the accident happens and then you're just like, whoa, he's just almost in this loop, right?
Yeah.
So
this internal torment of reliving that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did feel for the kids. Obviously, I'm a dad. And so when I just couldn't see how he could do that. Like he gets up there, he gives them a kiss and then good night, daddy. And he looks at her and says goodbye. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I was just, wow, that really got me.
Well, that's something I've written down is like, you don't feel for any of these characters.
No.
Like, they don't even try. They don't even try to make you like them. No. For the bad people.
They're all horrible.
Yeah, they're all horrible. They're just all shitty people. And
I'd say the only time you actually feel for them is when they're in the beginning of the whole thing, when they're in the catacombs and they meet the crypt keeper and he just starts his introduction to them and it's like, oh, here you are. And then he starts breaking down and showing them why they're there. I'd say that's the only time you kind of feel, and then you see their story and you're like, oh, these guys are assholes. It's just horrible.
We didn't say that at the beginning, but the wraparound story is these people seem to be on a tour of the catacombs in England or somewhere.
Yeah.
They leave the tour, they find this room, and they get forced to sit down, and they're being shown these visions. And at this point, we don't know if it's the future of what might happen or not.
Right. And everyone has, I don't understand. I was just on my way here, or I don't understand. This was happening here. And so it's almost like they missed the death part, but they got to a certain part in their life. And then, yeah, I think that covers first impressions, tropes, Hall of Shame in this one.
I didn't really get anything on this one for trope Hall of Shame. I mean, there is the husband leaving the wife and the packing a suitcase. All you need is one suitcase to leave somebody.
Well, he's trying to convince him he's on a business trip, right? So he probably doesn't want to take everything right now. He'll send for his things, I guess. I don't know, but is it only one? I thought there were two.
Well, maybe two.
Yeah, he's got two suitcases and off he goes. Yeah. And well, right away, you know something's wrong because she goes, so how long are you going to be this time? He's like, I don't know. I'll call you when I get there. You don't know how long your business trip is going to be.
Yeah. there were signs.
Yeah.
Goodbye was the big one.
Yeah. Well, as soon as he starts walking around, it wasn't hard to figure out. You're like, oh, he's leaving her.
We got that. Why couldn't she?
Yes, exactly. My tropes Hall of Shame was the makeup. I thought the makeup was awful.
The zombie
dead thing. He looked like, do you remember Scrooged? The zombie old boss of his with the golf player. Yeah, that's what the makeup was. And that was supposed to be a parody and funny, whereas this was supposed to be serious. That makeup just did not age. So
one-liners. Well, again, not a lot was said. It was mostly just people screaming and reacting to his face. So I guess the best one-liners when, good night. Goodbye.
Yeah, that one or the reveal. He's been dead for 2 years.
Yeah.
Those were the only two that really stood out for me. Everything else was more screaming.
Yeah.
There was a ton of screaming.
And it's like, as the audience, you're like, why is everyone just screaming at this person? And then it's like, oh, they didn't like how bad the makeup was.
This is horrific.
They're all method acting. Oh, that makeup. So I guess that takes us to what doesn't hold up, and it's the makeup.
It's the makeup there too, yeah. Unfortunately, we seem to be really shitting on the makeup artist in this one, but maybe in 1972 that was scary, but it really doesn't hold up.
It almost looked like black and white movie makeup, but this is a colorized film, so it just didn't translate or something. Gratuitous scenes.
I didn't really have anything for a gratuitous scene. I don't think anything like really was. I mean, if you're just gonna say what happens over and over, the fact that it's in a loop, I guess would be the only thing. But otherwise, I didn't really see anything that was too over the top or too played out. So
no, just maybe the overacting of the screaming.
Yeah, there was a lot of that, and especially when he wakes up from his nightmare, and he's this huge scream from a nightmare. It was okay.
Yeah, it's a bit much. I think we need to remind everyone we really liked this movie.
Yeah, we seem to be giving you all the bad stuff, but it's actually very well done, and the acting is good. It's well done.
And I don't know.
And one of the things, actually, if we could go back to stood the test, or are we at stood the test of time?
We're getting to stood the test of time. So
we'll just go there. I'll say the point of view. Yeah. The POV shot was really cool. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah. It was well done. I don't know if they used Steadicam or not, but it wasn't very shaky. They didn't.
No, not at all. And for that time, I don't know how many point of view shots were used back in the 70s, but that seemed really well done. You watch him come in and everybody's reacting, and then you don't know. I found myself saying, I want to see what is happening to this dude.
It definitely drew you into what are they reacting?
What does he look? I was expecting eyeballs hanging out and all this stuff. So the reveal was kind of disappointing when I saw him in the reflection, and then he screamed again, and then I was, oh, okay. But I think if it was to be redone and they really did some gross makeup on it, I think it would be quite a cool reveal.
For me, this stood the test of time. I really liked the circular narrative. It had me engaged right from the beginning. When he wakes up back in the car, there's the whole never end a story with, and then he woke up.
Right.
But because these people are being punished or tortured, knowing that that's what he's going to face for eternity, that did unsettle me.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
So I thought that was quite good. Back it up moments. I quite liked the reveal of the mistress being blind.
Yeah.
Because at first, like, she doesn't react to him, and you have to wonder, like, why? And then that even makes you question of, was it what they were seeing, or was it just because it was him? Like, were the wife and the new boyfriend just scared because, oh my God, he's back and he caught us, or what? And then when they pan down and you see the cane, it's like, like, I thought that was pretty good.
Mm-hmm. I do agree. That was, I don't know if it was a back it up moment for me, but it was very well done. And I liked it. As far as this particular one, I didn't really have a back it up moment. I thought watching it and the loop itself was backing it up for me. So I didn't really find a one that I wanted to watch again, but I agree with you. I thought the reveal was very well done. Yeah.
And I guess it's short enough that almost that whole loop, like you said, is the back it up.
And that's the good thing about these is they're really, really quick. And I know they don't have a lot of time to really delve into characterization and stuff when it's that fast, but the story, it really does hum along, right? Like the whole movie just kind of clicks forward. And then before you know it, you're like, oh, we're done.
If you look at the comics, right? Like the comics back then, I don't know how many pages were in each issue, but let's say the average comic is 32.
Right.
They would have 3 to 4 stories. Plus they'd have a couple of written stories in there as well. So a comic for me is a 15 to 20 minute read if I really want to look at the panels and enjoy it.
Yeah. And
so if you're looking at a 15 to 20 minute read and you're dividing that into 3 or 4 stories, like this movie does a great job of just keeping it tight, adding no filler, because the comics added no filler either.
Right. Not as well done from the real Tales from the Crypt, like the other Tales from the Crypt from HBO with the Crypt Keeper instead. Those things were a little cheesy.
Yeah.
And we're going on to the third installment of Tales from the Crypt, which is entitled Poetic Justice.
And in this story, Peter Cushing plays a widower living in a small suburb of London, I'm assuming, or a small village in England somewhere. And he's a toy maker, and he makes toys for all the children of the neighborhood and is liked, and he gives them treats and that. And it's all very innocent. But to the 2 busybody gentlemen across the street, they don't like that he's doing this. They wonder why he's doing it.
Well, there's that, and they also think that his house is a bit of an eyesore, and it's bringing down the value of their property and everybody's property around. So they really don't like the fact that he's there doing all this stuff. The guy also takes in stray dogs, and he takes care of them. I mean, really, this guy is a saint. Mm-hmm. And these 2 gentlemen that live across the way that are his neighbors are just
not having it.
Yeah, they just don't like him. And it's not even really the one guy. The one guy just kind of lets it happen. It's really the dark-haired gentleman. I can't even remember his name in the series. Yeah, sorry about that. He is the one that really instigates everything and starts pushing forward to get this guy out of there. He just wants him gone.
Like they say, he's driving down the value. So the first thing they do is they trample his rose bushes, and those look like pretty nice rose bushes. So I don't know how it's an eyesore, but
right. Well, those weren't his rose bushes. Those were the other guy's prize-winning rose bushes, and he said the dogs got out and ripped up his rose bushes.
I swear I watched this.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, they blamed. That's right, because that's how they got the dogs taken away.
Yes, because he says, I know it's those dogs. Like, there's no proof whatsoever. He just says, I know it's his dogs. Right. And so they take his dogs away.
Right. So then now he's alone. He doesn't have the dogs. And then they get the parents of the neighborhood to start to think, like, why is he giving toys to the children? Doesn't that seem a bit weird? And
yeah, they start to
all the mothers like, you can't go near that man's house. He's not safe. He's dangerous. And so he's lost his dogs. He's lost this connection with the children. And so he's lonely.
His wife is gone.
And they decide, well, that hasn't finished it off. So they on Valentine's Day, they then send him a stack of cards. Yeah. With just insulting poems.
That say basically wish you were dead and you should kill yourself and we don't want you in our neighborhood anymore. All this horrible stuff.
Which eventually leads to him taking his life. And then whose heart was that at the end? Sorry, the 2 villainous men, or one of them gets a package in the morning with a heart in it. Yeah.
So what happens is, like, the old man who killed himself comes back as a zombie and then basically stalks the one guy that kind of instigated all this stuff and kills him and takes his heart out and then sends it in a package to his business partner, his roommate, his lover. I have no idea what their relationship is.
I thought maybe father-son, but it seemed not quite that. And then I was like, are they lovers? And I thought that's quite
progressive for 72. So I wasn't sure if that was the case. Yeah. And then I thought maybe business partners, but they didn't really talk about any kind of business. They just lived together.
Yeah. And like we said, there's no characterization in this film. So if you have questions about what is this relationship, you're not going to get them. They're just two men who
hang out together and want to ruin this old man's life. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then, the film ends with the other partner receiving a note with a beating heart still in there.
Right. And it says, now you don't have a heart, or you don't have
you don't have and then there's just the heart.
It's the opposite of Tony Stark. Right?
Yeah. So first impressions, what did you think of this one?
It was very hard for me to watch. I liked this old guy, and Peter Cushing does a great job of portraying this nice old man who's just, loves to make toys for kids, and he's essentially Santa Claus. Like, this guy's just an awesome,
generous heart.
Yes, and he eats dinner in front of the photo of his wife every night, and he's got no money really, but he has enough to. Oh, that's the other thing. He has a job. They get him fired from his job too. Right. He has a job, and then they say, I can't even remember how they get him fired. How do they?
I can't remember that either.
They start spreading rumors about him, and then he gets fired. That takes away his pension. So then he doesn't even get his retirement savings. They really do a number, and it was just really hard to watch. I just couldn't see why someone would do this over property value. It really upset me. Actually, this one really bothered me.
Yeah. And I think part of that comes from the fact that, for my first impression, I absolutely loved this one. It's my favorite of the 5.
Okay.
I 100% was just into this and just felt heartache for this guy. And I think it's because we had 2 stories where we have a husband who's murdered. We don't know why. And we see the death of the killer. And so we have nobody to invest in that story.
Right.
And then in the second one, it's just a quick little beat of man leaves family. We feel for the family, but there's no establishment to the family. There's no emotional connection to them.
Right.
Because the story never goes back to them, really. But in this one, it's completely centered around the humanizing of the victim. And so it hits you after 2 cold, fast ones.
Fair enough. Yeah. No. And, as far as emotional investment, this one definitely takes the cake out of the 5. The reason why I say it's so hard to watch is because I really felt for this guy who's really getting screwed over for no other reason than just living his life and trying to be a nice guy. It was just really hard to watch for me, but I agree. It was definitely one of the better ones of the 5. Yeah.
Let's get to our categories on this one. Tropes, Hall of Shame, anything.
I guess if you were going to be kind of nitpicky about stuff, I guess you would say when they find the body, just him swinging, you see the legs and you just see him swinging back and forth. I mean, how many times have you seen that shot done?
Right.
So I would say that. Again, the makeup didn't really do it for me. So those are the 2 things that I would criticize on this one.
For me, it was the unkempt cemetery.
Yeah.
So he dies on Valentine's Day, and then it's a year later when he comes back from the dead to haunt and stalk and kill the other 2. And in that time, it looks like this cemetery hasn't been cared for in decades. So he must have been the last body buried. He got buried and the cemetery shut down and nobody cared for it. And it's just a very fertile soil because it's overgrown. And I know they're going for mood and atmosphere, but I just was like, did nobody think to question this?
Yeah. And also the hand coming out of the grave was very overdone. Yes. Yeah. Even by those standards, by 1972, definitely that has happened many times.
One-liners.
Oh, one-liners. I didn't really have, I would say probably wasn't even spoken, but it was the one written at the end. It was now you don't have a heart. Now you truly don't have a heart.
Right. Yeah.
I think that was my favorite one. Yeah.
And as bad as the cards were, right? The cards were horrible, but I wrote them all down as lines. So, but I won't read all 3.
Like little rhymes that they put together. Yeah.
So the first one he gets, actually, no, let's go for the middle one. The middle one I thought was unfortunately well constructed. A tree is beautiful if its owner prunes it, but our town isn't because your presence ruins it.
Ouch.
Yeah. And like those 3 cards, reading them one after the other. And he's like, and he even says when he checks them in, he's like, oh, it must be Christmas.
Yeah.
Because you're so happy to get all these Christmas cards. And he's this person that has no attention, no connection. So he's so excited. And he sits down and he reads 3 cards that are just
horrible.
Yeah. Like the punchline is like, but you smell, or jump in the river and drown.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things, the front part of the card looks real.
Yeah, be my Valentine.
Yeah, hey, be my Valentine. And it looks happy. And he's like, oh, that's nice. And then he opens it up and then it has these horrible sayings in there. One of the things that bothered me about that is that the stuff written in the cards looked like it was written by the card company, not by a person writing it.
Yeah, and this was before you had, do you remember Print Shop where you could print your own cards at home? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well before any of that stuff was going on. So I just thought, why aren't these handwritten? Because really what was supposed to happen is these guys were supposed to get these 2 gentlemen that sit up there in their study and stare at this old man and concoct ways to ruin his life. They went out to the community and said, we want you all to write these nasty cards. And then the whole community writes these nasty cards and send them to him. But if they were writing the cards, it wouldn't look like the way it was written in the card. Anyways, that is a total like little thing. I'm just pulling at threads. It was actually really well done. Yeah. But
maybe they hired a calligrapher.
Yeah, for all those cards. Yeah. But anyways, that was one of the things I actually made a note about. I was like, why is the writing so good in these cards when they should be all handwritten? The other thing I didn't really buy is that they would be able to get the whole community to write this nasty shit about this poor man.
Yeah, like I could understand them saying like, don't go near him because he's questionable with why he wants children around him.
Yeah.
But that definitely wouldn't lead a parent to be like, now I'm going to write you a card telling you to die.
To kill yourself. Yeah. And if these are written by parents and by adults, my God.
Yeah.
Like, just unbelievable. Anyways, it works to the story, moves it forward, and it's one of those instances that really gets you kind of, wow. I mean, they're trying to push him to commit suicide, so it really does put another layer on top of all the horrible stuff that happens to him.
So I just found it. It's Happy Valentine's Day. You were mean and cruel right from the start. Now you really have no...
And then you see a heart, and it's beating, and it's...
and... They must have gone to a butcher because the blood looked so fake in the first one, and it looks amazingly good.
Oh yeah, that is
a
top notch.
That's a pig's heart.
Yeah. So those was that
was just one-liners.
Oh wow, we got to move on here. What doesn't add up?
What doesn't hold up?
Well, what doesn't hold up was the
zombie makeup again.
Yeah. The makeup again.
Gratuitous scene, the heart at the end. It is gruesome and bloody compared to anything else we've seen in this movie so far.
Well, I guess even in the other 3, the massage choking is quite tame. And then really the zombie makeup in the second one is all you ever see. There's no blood or anything in that one. So this one's probably, the most graphic in all 5 of them, I would say. But we'll get to the other 2 in a bit.
In another hour at the rate we're going.
Right, yeah.
What stood the test of time?
Okay, for me, it was when the old man comes back and he gets into that room. So it's a long shot, like it's a far shot, and it's the way it's lit, it's really dark and he's kind of hanging out in the shadows, and the camera pans with him. You see an image and then you lose him, and then he comes back and then you lose him.
Yeah.
And for me, that was amazing. I watched that and was like, that's really still quite freaky. So I thought even with the makeup from that shot range, it still looked really creepy. So I thought that one really stood the test of time for me.
Yeah, I'll give it that. And I think just the humanizing of him as well. Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking at the face of the dead corpse is just... I shouldn't have paused it there. Back it up moments, anything?
Probably that scene.
Yeah.
That was my favorite out of the whole bit. The rest of it was just, I didn't want to revisit. They were just so mean to that poor man. That scene was probably my back it up moment.
Yeah, for me too. And
okay, then we just flew through that one. So now we're going really took some time in the first 3, and then we just like, all right, let's go.
Wish You Were Here. Nothing happens. Let's go to the 5th one. So the 4th section is called Wish You Were Here, and this is a retelling or reimagining of the monkey's paw story, where they find a figurine that says it will grant them 3 wishes. And of course, the final line is rubbed off. They can't see the warning. They get told, though, be careful what you wish for. They don't mention the monkey's paw until about halfway through. It's like, this, it's like, don't you remember the monkey's paw?
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like, oh, okay. So they've admitted they're ripping it off. So I guess that's okay. It's the typical story of they're financially strapped. And so she's like, I wish we had lots of money. And of course, the twist is that he then dies in a car accident. So she gets the life insurance payout. She's then so distraught and upset that I wish he were back as alive now as he is.
Forever.
Or no, I wish he was back. I wish he was back here. That's the second wish. I wish he was back here.
Right.
And so she's like, I wish he was back here. And so all of a sudden these morticians come in and just dump the not dump, but like put the casket
in the living room. Yeah.
In the living foyer. It's like, there you are. He's back. And then she's like, I wish he were alive like he was just before the accident, or just at the time of the accident.
Right.
What we don't know at that time is like, I wish he was alive like he was just before the accident, or I wish he was back the way he was before the accident. Suddenly he wakes up and he's in agony and pain. And we find out he didn't die from the car accident. He died from a heart attack. And so that's what killed him. So he was dead when the accident happened. So now she's like, I wish he was. So he basically wakes up dead. And she says like forever.
Yes.
And this is where it gets a little gross and creepy, because she takes a sword because she's like, oh, I need to kill him again, and starts to cut up the body. And the guy's like, whoa, what are you doing? You said he'd be alive forever. So all of his parts will now be alive forever.
Right. But let's back it up just a section there. Before she starts hacking him up, he wakes up and he's writhing in pain. He's screaming because he's been embalmed. So he's got formaldehyde going through his body, and he's just in immense pain. So he's screaming. And so she's, why is he like this? Why is he like this? And the guy says, her friend says, well, he's been embalmed. You brought him back and he's dead.
All his blood has been taken out and has been replaced with formaldehyde.
Yeah.
Burning him from the inside.
So then she takes a sword and she starts to hack him up. But then the hand starts to move. And then I'm going to jump to gratuitous scenes. There's this gratuitous scene of the kidneys.
Viscera?
No,
innards?
the innards, the bowels, the intestines. That's what I was going for. So yeah, there's a shot of that. And she just keeps hacking away. And then she's, and then she cries, and then it's over. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, but I wanted to make sure that they knew that he was screaming and writhing in agony, which is why she started chopping him up, not just like, I wish he was alive forever. Ha!
Right. Yes, right. I wish he was alive forever. I regret that choice. I'm going to kill him.
And now I'm going to kill you.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to put him out of his misery is what she's thinking. First impressions, I enjoyed it. I mean, it is just the monkey paw, so you know that the wishes are going to go foul. You can't help but think of the Simpsons episode, things like that. It's been done and done again.
Exactly. I liked it. I've seen it before.
Yeah.
Right.
Tropes Hall of Shame.
The story itself.
Yep.
It's just been done to death. I've read The Monkey's Paw. I've seen renditions of The Monkey's Paw. It's just been done. And maybe at that time, not as much, but as Mike said, they even make reference to it. Remember The Monkey's Paw? So they just used a shrine instead of the monkey's paw. So I think the whole story itself is just a trope.
I think that comes down to, they didn't have license to use all of the stories from the comics.
Right.
So they had to come up with other things. And I think this was just one of we need something. And a writer's like, I know.
Let's do this.
The story of the monkey's paw was written in 1902.
Wow.
So I'm guessing by 1972, there was quite a few radio shows and other things.
I would think so, yeah.
What doesn't hold up? I think just the monkey's paw. I think a lot of our answers to this are going to be,
the story itself. Yeah, it's just because it's just so cliche. It's just been done so much. Yeah. So we didn't do one-liners, but there wasn't really a one-liner for me other than...
When you find out his body parts will be alive forever.
Yes, when he says... that, he's been embalmed and now he's going to be writhing in pain forever. Like, I think that would probably be the only one-liner I could think of. The wishes were pretty straightforward. Always money out of the gate. Somebody dies from it. That's the other thing. And when we talk about tropes and what doesn't hold up and everything, they're always wishing for money. Then somebody dies. They wish for that person back.
Yeah.
And that person comes back as a zombie or something. And then they're like, oh my God, what do we do now? And
anything stand the test of time. Or did we do gratuitous? We didn't do gratuitous.
Gratuitous scene, I kind of jumped ahead when I was yapping, but it was the intestine shot, I think, pretty much for me.
Yeah, they did look gross. I think because there's a lack of blood, it wasn't as visceral.
Right.
But he's been embalmed, so they did a good job of making it just look like cold, empty bowels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stood the test of time.
I don't really see anything standing the test of time in that other than the shot of the bowels of the intestines. You know, they looked real.
Maybe the motorcycle. So what causes the car accident is a guy with a skull mask helmet coming behind him on the car, and eventually leads him to crash. So the image of that motorcyclist in the rearview mirror, I thought was pretty good. But I don't know if that stood the test of time. But even today, if I had somebody like behind me for too long on the road wearing that mask, I'd be unsettled. So
yeah, I get paranoid if people take like 4 turns my same way, right? Yeah. So
I'll come home.
Are they following me? What's going on here?
It was like, I thought you were going to be home like 10 minutes ago. It's like, oh, I had to lose the tail.
Yeah.
I had to turn left and got lost in my own neighborhood. Yeah.
Back it up moments, none for me.
The motorcycle chase.
Yeah. I'd have to say out of the 5, this was probably, just because of the story, it was probably the weakest one for me. So I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the other ones, especially the one previous. But I mean, it was so good. It's an interesting story, but it has been done a lot. And I remember as soon as it started and she started wishing on the shrine, I was, okay, so something bad's going to happen so they can get something good, and so on and so on. So
I would almost think that the filmmakers knew this was the weakest, because you wouldn't want to start out the gate with this, because you would lose your audience. They'd be like, oh, this is just another stereotypical film. Second, maybe. But if like you have 2 good hitters right off the gate, and then you have a very emotional punch, like maybe this one could have been third, and then win us back with Valentine Justice. Yeah. But there was really nowhere to place this in the order. You couldn't finish with it, because then it'd be like, oh, that was the worst movie ever.
Yeah, I know.
So it's almost, you have this powerful humanized story, then you have this like palate cleanser of just tripe. It's like in every dramedy on TV where you have these serious moments and then there's like a bad joke just to make the audience sort of release their tension. So it's almost like this is just a get it out of your system tension. Not going to be too scary. It's not going to be too unsettling. And then you get into that 5th one, which again goes to places that are terrifying.
Well, and there's peaks and valleys in every film, right? I mean, there's always downtime. This is probably my, you know what, I could probably go to the bathroom here, or I'll get a snack or something. I don't need to really see all of this kind of moment. I remember even watching it downstairs. I was just kind of looking around at certain points, really not engaged.
This is when you check the scores on your phone.
Exactly. It's definitely one that you could kind of glaze over and still get the gist of it and not really have to, you just don't have to pay attention that much. So
go refill your popcorn in the lobby.
That's right. Yeah. Go get some junior mints.
And so the 5th story is called Blind Alleys. This one it's a senior's home, but for blind people. I don't know if everyone's a veteran or not, but
yeah, I'm not sure. They don't really go into that, but this guy that takes over is a military,
an ex-commander.
Yeah. And has a German Shepherd that is his kind of protector. And so he comes in, and basically, if I jump to first impressions of this one, I liked it, but within 2 seconds I was, this is Ebenezer Scrooge. He comes in and he takes this over, and I'm going to cut this, and we're not going to have heat for these people. And we're not going to do this because we got to save money. He's kind of a miser. He takes over this old folks home for blind people and just puts it in the crapper. And although I liked it, that was my first impression of it. It's like very much kind of a side of the old Christmas Carol tune.
I mean, we hate, or at least I did, we hate all 5 of the evil people in this. And so it's like right out the gate, they need to establish, don't like this man.
Yes.
We can give you nothing. There's the save the cat reference, right? He has no save the cat moment.
Right.
Yeah, it's just, you have to hate him. He's evil and all that. Another thing that they do establish quite early on is the character played by Patrick McGee. They don't go into the history. There's no flashback, but remembers the voice and the name of this man. And so I would say it was some pretty good facial acting. Tells the audience, like, I remember that voice and I've been traumatized by it.
Right.
And I do not like this man.
Yeah.
And that really sets up this relationship where the commander clearly doesn't remember him, but he remembers what this commander was like and what this commander did.
Right.
And so as the conditions deteriorate, Patrick McGee's character has this turmoil of, I hate this man and I want to get revenge, but I don't know how to do it. And eventually it leads to all the blind people getting together and building this almost mousetrap maze where they trap his dog and starve it for several days.
Yeah.
And they get him to go into another room and lock him in. And while the dog's locked in one room and he's locked in another, they build fences and walls full of razors where he only has one direction to go, which is towards the dog. And the dog only has one direction to go, which is towards him.
Right.
And the movie basically ends with him choosing to either be eaten by his own dog or run through a very narrow wall of razors.
Right.
That's the revenge of these blind senior citizens.
Seems kind of elaborate.
Yeah. And very well constructed.
Yes.
As you said.
My first impression of this was I liked it. I thought it was kind of interesting. Like I said, it reminded me of Christmas Carol, but it had obviously different little nuances. The character was not saved and he, ends up in this. I mean, being eaten by a dog would be a pretty horrible way to go.
I know, but when he's trying to squeeze down that hallway of razors on either side, it's cutting his tie and his jacket.
But one of the
things... Would you rather run down that and hope to get through it?
I think so.
Yeah.
But my thing would be just looking at those razors and the way they were placed on the wall. How would they stay there so that if you just didn't push them on the side of the razor, that they just didn't fall off?
Crazy glue? I don't know. I don't know.
Right?
Or they were pushed,
and again, that's me being nitpicky. Like this is not necessarily what you're supposed to be thinking about when you're watching this film. But when I looked at it, they just seem very
haphazardly.
Yeah, they're just placed in there, and then he walks by, and yes, they would be super sharp, and they're probably cutting him all up while he's even just trying to get through. But if you just kind of, I guess they made it skinny enough that you have to go through sideways. So if you were running straight ahead and you hit the razors, they would fall down. As he's coming through sideways, they cut you up.
But it's not like he had the time to evaluate their craftsmanship. Maybe on his first, because he goes through that hall of razors without the threat of the dog. He could have reached out and just gone how stable are these? Why can't I just flick them off?
Yeah.
But instead he just
squeezes through. He's like, well, I got to go this way.
Yeah. I didn't give my first impression, but I did enjoy this as well. I think, by the way, you can tell I'm talking about him defending it quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I thought it was quite good. The pain and the suffering of these patients was hard to watch. The night when they're cold and they want blankets, and it's like, well, you can just take a blanket from that guy. He doesn't need it.
Yeah. Well, that guy's dead. So obviously cold, heartless man comes in, takes over, and these people are just treated horribly. And it does really make you feel for them, and you want revenge. You want them to take revenge. So you feel, as we've said, all these characters are horrible and you don't feel anything for him. It is not as hard to watch as the third one, but yeah, you feel for these people.
And that's going to take us into the tropes Hall of Shame. I don't have a lot for this. I mean, there is the greedy person who comes in to ruin everyone's life, the weak and what are we going to do? Blind people. Yeah. This one I thought was fairly well done. I don't have a lot of issues with what they did or how they did it to identify a trope.
No, I agree. I didn't really think of something that was, way overdone or like you said, just other than my thinking it was Ebenezer Scrooge. Other than that, and everything else seemed pretty well done. So yeah, we can move on to the next one, I think, because it seemed like a good one.
Yeah, the one-liners. I do have one where they burst into the commander's office or the head person's office, and to a room full of blind people, he says, "Can't you see I'm having my lunch?" And I really liked that.
Yeah, that was good. That's good.
I don't know if they went for comedy there, because it is something you would just say, but
yeah,
it just made me chuckle.
That's pretty good. Mine was, give me some food. Well, at least feed my dog, because he's pounding on the cell block and the dog's barking. The dog's been barking for days. We don't have a timeline of how long this has been going on, but you can see as the shots focus on the colonel or the commander that he's getting progressively more and more disheveled. He looks like he's
in a few days.
Yeah. So they've had him there, and the dog is barking constantly. So not only would that drive you crazy just hearing your dog bark for that long, but then he's like, feed me. Well, then just feed my dog.
So there's his redeeming quality. At least feed the dog.
At least. Keep the dog alive.
What doesn't hold up in this one? The razors in the hallway, according to you?
I said this earlier before we started our podcast. I don't want to be insensitive, but I'm not sure how good the craftsmanship of that hallway would be with...
I did write down how many thumbs were hit with hammers.
There was a lot of hammering going on, and... I don't know. I hit my thumb on a regular basis. I don't want to harp on this, but it would have taken a long time to build that intricate hallway between the two.
A lot of careful time.
Yes, exactly. So that's my thing.
Gratuitous scenes.
There wasn't anything, actually. There was no blood or any violence. They kept it really, really low key until the very end, and then at the end you didn't even really see him get cut or bit or anything. It was just all implied, right?
There's a little bit of blood where like he cuts himself on a razor and he sucks his thumb.
Oh yeah.
But I mean,
okay. But by comparison, like when you're talking about an open chest cavity where you're seeing or a heart beating or even like the swinging man and anything like that, like this one by all the others was fairly tame as far as gratuitous scenes.
The only thing I could think of, and this is more just like me inferring or surmising or guessing possibly incorrectly, is in the evening, this one patient, Greenwood, is cold and he's dead. And they're like, well, just take Greenwood's blanket. He doesn't need it anymore.
Right.
And then the next scene we cut to, and it's a hard cut, is lunch or dinner. And they've all got plates of meat.
Yeah.
There was me, I did write down, are they eating Greenwood?
Oh,
up to that moment, they've not been getting good food. They've not been well fed.
And now they have meat.
And it's a great scene because you don't know why, but they're passing a plate around and they're all putting their meat onto this one plate.
Yeah.
You're like, what is going on? But they're then going to use this meat to then bait the dog into the room where they trap it.
Right.
But in that meal scene, it was like the scene in The Last of Us where, right, the guy dies out in the wild and then suddenly they're eating meat the next scene.
Yeah, and they're like, what kind of meat is it? It's venison. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, even though venison is Greg's nickname. Yeah. Maybe it's because that's fresh in my mind. So watching that scene, I was just like, I wonder. But that almost seems a little bit too far.
That's an interesting take because I did not get that, but I could totally see that happening because also they're trying to feed this meat to the dog. They want him to ultimately eat the commander, so they want him to get accustomed to
the taste of human flesh.
Maybe I'm drawing too much of it, but that seems maybe, I don't know. That's interesting. That's an interesting take. I didn't get that, but yeah, that's cool. Could have gone
really dark and just had a little throwaway, like, oh, we haven't eaten this good in weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm making my own gratuitous scene by saying, yeah, they were eating Greenwood.
Well, definitely. I'll jump on board with that because that sounds really cool.
Yeah. It makes it a better moment.
It does, yeah. That's so much more disgusting. It's like, it's actually fairly tame. No, they're cannibals now.
Yeah. Or perhaps. What stood the test of time?
I think the whole story was
quite good.
Pretty good, yeah. I mean, I know I slagged it off at the beginning, but I actually liked it. Mm-hmm. I thought it was well done. I thought the acting was well done. I thought it's kind of cool. Very Saw-like almost, where you have to
solve a puzzle.
Get out of here. Yeah. So I liked it. I thought it was good.
Yeah. And I'm just going to go back to Peter McGee. He was not best actor worthy, but every moment he was on screen, like I couldn't get my eyes off him.
Right. Yeah.
The way he reacted to hearing the commander's voice again, everything, like he just,
his facial expressions were very, very well done. Mm-hmm. And he looks disheveled and like, very
out of sorts.
And he did a really, really good job.
Mm-hmm. And so that is the end of the 5th chapter in the story. And the movie goes back to the crypt where these 5 people, they've all had their time to react to this story and be like, well, what is this you're showing me and what's going on? And I would never do that. And
I was on my way to work. What do you mean this has happened? Yeah.
And that's when we find out as the audience, these aren't things that are to come. These are things that are happened or have happened. And so they're actually facing judgment. And they then have to go through a gate at the back of the room and fall into the pit of hell.
Yeah, so the gate opens up and it's this bright white light, and the first guy to go through, isn't it the commander? Isn't he the first guy to fall, or is it?
It's the guy who cheated on his wife.
Right.
Yeah. Followed by Joan Collins, followed by the person who sent the Valentines.
They fall into this pit of hell, and then at the end, it goes to the crypt keeper, and he goes, "Who will be next? Mm-hmm. It could be you." The ending, I thought, was probably, I loved all the skits. I liked the beginning. The ending was probably the weakest for me. The way they tried to wrap it up, I know they have to wrap it up in some way, but when they fell, they show a CG version of this fiery pit that they're falling into, and it really did not age well.
It was the level of animation of the old 1970s Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. It was jarringly bad.
Yes. So it really takes you out of the moment, and that was the biggest thing for me, and I just thought the ending was just a little weak. Overall, the movie was great. I think it got 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. It got 6.9 on the IMDb. I would give it a 7 out of 10.
I would give it a 7 out of 10 as well.
I would watch it again. It was fun.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely great. All right, so now it's time for our bonus features. Just extra information or little tidbits we found while we researched or looked a little deeper into the film to add some body or add a little perspective to what was going on. The first thing I found was the director, I'm just going to remind myself of the name, Freddie Francis, directed this, and he's directed a few other campy and anthology horrors, but what I really liked was he directed a movie from 1970 called Trog. And when we were picking our movie for our 1970,
heard about that, yeah.
That was going to be our choice, but then it was, I know we said we were going to do some of the worst, but that one was so bad. It was on the level of Troll or,
oh no,
or the one where the tire goes and kills people on the highway. So, right. He went from that in 1970 to this. He stepped it up, but I think source material really carried him a long way. The next thing was same thing. Francis was the director of this, but he went on to do a lot of cinematography. His list of cinematography is where he's remembered. He did David Lynch's Dune. He did Cape Fear, Glory, David Lynch's The Straight Story, and The Elephant Man. Those are his big ones.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
So he's quite the accomplished cinematographer. Probably better that he stepped out of directing, I would say.
Yeah. So when we chose Tales from the Crypt, I immediately thought of Tales from the Crypt from
HBO.
The HBO, where the crypt keeper, hello everybody, and he's sitting there and he's all rotted and stuff like that. And then when I watched it, I was pleasantly surprised that it was not anything to do with that. So as far as just interesting facts, apparently the TV series took quite a few of these original ones and adapted them and used them in their Tales from the Crypt in HBO.
I didn't get a chance to find them to watch them, but I am curious to see how they got adapted to but because I think the TV show was one story per half-hour segment.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how they would stretch it out, especially and all through the house. I don't know if I need to watch 25 minutes of the Joan Collins character disposing of the body. So I'd be curious where they went with that.
Yeah. And like I just pulled something up here where it talks about Blind Alleys, the one that we just reviewed last there. It says, is now Revenge is the Nuts, and was about a beautiful blind girl who comes to live at a house for the blind where the sadistic director tries to sexually assault her. And in the end, she and the other residents take their revenge on the director in the same fashion as the original story.
That one gets a little nastier.
So it gets pretty dark. Yeah, by comparison. So there's other ones you can look up that they changed, but they just made it more gratuitous and more graphic for the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I looked at the budget and I adjusted it for inflation. So this movie adjusted for inflation cost 3.7 million Canadian, but took in at the box office 29.5 million Canadian.
Wow.
In that year, it was second in the box office to The Godfather.
Whoa. Yeah. Big return. Yes. Wow. That's impressive.
And what I don't understand is like second to The Godfather and nobody talks about this movie.
No.
You never hear anybody mention
I didn't know
this.
anything about this. Like the only reason is because we're doing research for this podcast.
Like I knew the TV show, I knew the bad movies in the 2000s, but I didn't know there was a 72 movie that did that well. The other thing that was quite interesting, and this is going to carry over to our next episode as well, but Peter Cushing's wife died quite recently prior to the filming of this film.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when you look at the story where he's playing this widower being harassed by his neighbors, it was a very hard role for him to fulfill, and it was a little too close to home, but he did a great job with it and took that into the role. So
wow.
Yeah, like, unfortunately the most realistic form of method that he could do.
Well, I've heard he uses a lot of real life in his acting. So yeah, he's been complimented a lot for that. Yeah.
The scene where he uses the Ouija board to speak with her, right?
Oh yes. Yeah.
And like the pain in his face, it's Like the reason why it's so engrossing for the audience is probably because he's pulling on his real pain there.
Yeah, which we didn't really touch on when we did the review, that he actually practices in the occult and with witchcraft and things like that, so he can speak with his wife, his dead wife, and she does warn him. She says danger, and we didn't really touch on that, which is one of the reasons why he comes back as a zombie a year later and gets, so it's kind of crucial to the story. We didn't even talk about it. Whoops.
Keep up. Yeah. Anything else that you found?
Only 2 of the stories from EC's Tales from the Crypt comic book were used for this reason, according to Creepy founding editor Russ Jones, is that producer Milton Subdosky did not own a run of the original EC comic book, but instead adapted the movie from the 2 paperback reprints given to him by Jones. The story Wish You Were Here was reprinted in the paperback collection, The Vault of Horror. The other 4 stories in the movie were among the 8 stories reprinted in the Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, okay.
So that's why we got some that weren't
the best.
Yes.
Because looking back at the comics, they are quite well done and interesting twists. And
right.
The last thing I had is just the franchise that this established is...
Oh, huge.
Almost unimaginable. There was a radio show in the year 2000 that had 8 episodes. The HBO series went for 7 years.
7 years?
7 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a Saturday morning cartoon in 1993.
Yes, I remember that.
I remember watching that as well. And that's where I first saw the Crypt Creeper. I didn't know the HBO series because I didn't have a friend with HBO back then.
So they used to show it. I found it when I lived in Taiwan.
Oh, okay.
Because they used to show it at midnight.
Oh, okay.
And HBO there, and HBO was just part of regular cable there, right? So I watched it there, and that's how I knew about it. Yeah,
I was out doing things at midnight, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
It was the 1950s comic, EC Comics. There was a game show in 1996 called Secrets of the Crypt Keeper's Haunted House.
Wow.
Lasted for 1 year. 3 movies were made. 1995's Demon Night, 96's Bordello of Blood, and then in 2002 there was a Spanish film, Ritual, which only had international release. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I've seen 2 of those.
Yeah, I haven't seen Ritual either. I'd be curious to see if it is any better than those other 2 because they were.
Oh, the other 2 were horrible. that one. What was the first one you said?
Demon Night?
Yes, Demon Night. Oh my God, that was nasty.
Bordello of Blood was almost trying to be softcore, but not.
Well, Bordello of Blood was forgettable because I know I've seen it and I probably watched 10 minutes of it and be like, oh yeah.
I do have to confess, there was a brief moment of time where that and From Dusk Till Dawn would get switched up in my mind. And then M. Night Shyamalan was rumored that he was going to reboot the series in 2017, but that never happened.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, it could have been good.
I bet you he would have done a really interesting job. I like a lot of his films, even though he gets critically panned for some of them, but I think he would do a good job with that.
He went on to do Servant instead, and I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't seen that, no.
It's a great first season.
How many seasons are there?
3 or 4.
Oh, okay. But the first season's good. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you very much for listening to us. Be sure to check us out on our social media pages on Instagram. We are at ScreamStreamPod, no S's. Stop by our website, www.screamsandstreams.com, to check out our information about all our episodes and the films we have covered so far. Please subscribe, rate, and comment on our shows on any of the platforms where you get your podcasts at. And until next time, this has been Chad
and Mike.
And thank you very much.